welcome to episode 13 of the Simply Great Relationships podcast. We're so glad you could join us today. I'm Meredith Silversmith, and this is Marina Marina. And today we are talking about what to do when married life doesn't feel like you thought it would. I feel like this is something that comes up a lot with couples I see, so I'm excited to talk about it. We're going to be covering common expectations versus common realities. Does this mean our marriage isn't working? How the shoulds get in the way of happiness, how to appreciate what you have now, and how to create new realistic expectations for your relationship.
That's really, really important. That's super valuable.
Yeah, I think you're going to hear the words realistic and reality many times during this episode. Be sure to stay with us till the very end because we've got a great bonus for you and we're going to tell you how to get it.
So let's jump in and start talking about what are some really common expectations and almost myths.
Yeah.
Versus what are common realities? What does marriage and good marriage actually look like? I think one of my favorites when I hear it that I really love to debunk is when I see couples that are recently married and they're like, marriage should be just like dating. Which I think really sets your marriage up for failure.
Yeah.
And when we use the word marriage, I'm using that also like a long-term committed relationship. Here, we're not saying exclusively if you've made vows and had a ceremony.
Yeah.
Marriage, we're kind of using interchangeably with a long-lasting committed relationship. But marriage is obviously, more commitment, higher stakes than dating. The goal of dating is courtship.
Right.
The goal of dating is to show your peacock feathers, right? It's to have fun, get to know each other, go on dinner dates, go and do all these romantic things. It's great. I love dating.
Yep.
But that's not what your day-to-day marriage is going to look like. And to say that's what I want it to look like is setting it up for failure a bit.
Yeah, and I think that dating is a bit of a highlight reel.
Sure
dating is, especially before you live together. So, for me, I know I always ask couples that I see for sort of the timeline when they started dating, if they're married, when they got married, but I always ask when they moved in. Because living together is the really big turning point.
Yeah.
That's the transition point. So, dating before you live together, it's a bit of the highlight reel. Whereas being married or choosing to live together, that's when you're building a life together, right? That's, your goal is to create a long-standing partnership with goals and values and, building a family for some people. And, it's a very different goal. So marriage cannot feel like dating all the time.
Sometimes it can and sometimes it really should, but it can't feel like dating all the time and to have those expectations. Unrealistic.
Yeah. Myth. Debunked.
The next one is another one that I love to debunk a lot is my partner will take care of me.
No.
Not your partner's job.
Nope. Not their job. We need to be supportive of one another and be there to listen and to offer advice when asked and to be a shoulder to cry on and, be someone to have fun with. But it's not your partner's job to solve or manage your problem.
And it's also when there's this notion of my partner take care of me, I always think of it as a relationship. We talked about this in a couple of previous episodes, going from two equals to almost like a parent-child dynamic. So going from sexy to not sexy.
Yeah.
So another one debunked for you.
This one actually relates a lot to last week's episode, number 12. We will always agree on everything. Just so not the case. Like we talked about last week, you're two different people with two different backgrounds, you grew up in two different families. It is impossible to agree on everything, and it's not necessary. You don't have to agree on everything to have a good or a great, healthy relationship. You just have to know how to manage it. So if you didn't listen to last week's episode 12 on how to agree to disagree, definitely go back and check that one out.
Mm-hmm.
Debunked.
Another one is my vision should also be my partner's vision. So my vision of where we should live, where kids should go to school, how our relationship should feel, like they should just know. Mm-hmm. And it should also be their vision.
Mm-hmm. No. Not a thing.
You're two different people. Like the previous point, like you have two different visions, and they don't have to be the same.
Right.
Like richness is in the variety. Mm-hmm. The key is to learn what each other's visions are. Like, if you never share your vision, you're hiding a big part of yourself from your partner. So, learning each other's visions and working together, as opposed to trying to pull your partner and being a lawyer saying, like, no, here are my points as to why my vision is the correct vision. Working together, you can amalgamate and ameliorate, like, your two visions into something that's unique and truly your own as a couple.
Yeah, definitely. And this one sort of ties into that. This is my favorite of all time, I think. My partner should know my needs, wants, and desires at all times and meet them.
Yeah. I think as only children, this is one that resonates with us. I'm definitely a guilty party here.
Yep. Yep. Yes, it has taken a long time. Tom and I have been together for 12 years. So it took years to move out of that space, to like really genuinely move out of that space and move into asking for what I need or asking for what I want or being very clear rather than having that, why doesn't he know what I'm thinking? Why doesn't he understand that I feel XYZ right now? He should know this and he should do this and, getting kind of huffy about it rather than being really constructive and an active participant in the situation.
Yeah, and I think, like, the big question, and, I remember exactly the session when I asked a couple, like, this was going on, and it's funny because she was also an only child, and I asked her, I'm like, is your husband a psychic superhero? Like, is that how he's supposed to know all this? And I, like, had such an existential moment of, like, whoa, advice I need to take for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, your partner is not a psychic. If you don't share your wants, needs, desires, they're not going to know. And your relationship is really the place to do that. That's what adds a lot of depth and a feeling of connection and a feeling of attunement. And that feeling of being in love to your relationship is really being able to put all that stuff out there and have it be validated and heard. Not always met. Right. This is a really big, like, important thing here. Not always necessarily met, but always validated and understood.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the essence of communication and bonding.
You know what I'm thinking of? Not to be gender stereotypical, but do you tend to see this? Like, if it's a male-female couple, I'll explain this point, and the male partner will be like, yes! That's what I've been trying to explain. I'm not a mind reader. And, I share that with you because I know we have a lot of women who listen to our podcast. And just know that, coming from two women who are guilty of doing this, it's likely that your partner feels it. And it's likely that you may have heard this from, him or her before, saying, I'm not a mind reader. I'm not a mind reader. pay extra close attention today, if that's the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have to agree with that one. But I will say I have seen it in guys.
Oh, yeah.
Also, where guys expect their female partners to be a bit of a mind reader. I think it looks a little different. I think the type of things that, and let me know if you kind of see the same, the type of things that guys tend to expect their female partners to be psychics on are like their stressors.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I shouldn't have to tell you why I'm stressed out. You should just know.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I shouldn't have to tell you I love you. You should just know.
Yeah.
So, kind of like the more emoting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I notice sometimes it goes that way.
Yeah.
With guys. But I think the obvious, like, wants, needs, that's maybe a bit more of us ladies who may be guilty of that.
And I think the women tend to show up more with, like, you should know why I'm upset.
Mm-hmm.
You should know why I'm angry.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have to explain it to you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know.
Yeah. Explain it. And honestly, like, how much effort does it really take to explain it? Like, sometimes when you withhold that explanation and you're really, really so strongly tied to that, like, well, they should just know. Is that you feeding a power struggle?
Yeah.
Is that you really, like, fishing for a power struggle?
Yeah.
I always call that out because I feel like that information's never hard to share.
No.
And it's so valuable to share.
Definitely. You know, another myth is we will never have external stressors.
Because our love is so strong.
Our love is so strong, we could conquer anything. We could climb a mountain. Our love is so strong.
Sure you can.
Go for it.
The reality is there's always going to be external stressors. And to kind of live in a world with rose-colored glasses on and expect that just because your love is so strong, there's never going to be any stressors or, you know, like, life's not going to throw hardships. You're always a little naive and unrealistic. Is there a function to stressors, though?
Yeah. Not that we choose them, right? We don't go out searching for stressors, but, you know, they can provide opportunities to tackle things together, right? So use that strength that you have as a couple to tackle the stressor in a healthy way, to come together as a team and work on it, you know, to get closer rather than to just avoid or think they're not going to come your way at all.
Yeah, and also to build resilience. Like, I think there's really a lot to being able to build resilience as a couple. Like, I love when I get older couples, like, talking about, and I'm thinking about one couple in particular that I super love, who are an older couple and who have talked about, like, coping with certain, you know, like, really major stressors in life and how it was such, like, bonding and resilience building experiences in hindsight, even though in the moment it was, like, a really hard thing for them. And, you know, like, that's how I think, like, after learning that from them and, like, really internalizing that from them, like, it helps me reframe that in my relationship with George, where, like, there were certain stressors that we went through, and now I just think of them as, like, these were times we really supported each other, and we went through, like, this big learning curve of supporting each other, and now we're more resilient and stronger as a couple.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that. So, you know, going through these myths and, you know, these are beliefs that a lot of partners hold. So, you know, moving past that, I think underneath each of these, like, if someone has an experience that violates those beliefs, right? My partner doesn't read my mind. You know, we're thrown external stressors that feel like we can't handle them. The question that comes up is, like, does this mean our marriage isn't working? So if these things are not true in this moment, does that mean our marriage is failing in some way? And typically the answer is no.
Yeah. I mean, I think with that is like, there's a big difference between like things that would be nice or like things I would prefer versus like things that are violations of non-negotiables, values, ethics. Like, yes, it would be nice if you never had any stressors. It would be nice if your vision of your relationship was exactly the same.
It would be.
Sure.
But if it's not, that doesn't mean that your marriage is failing. You know, versus when we say violations of our non-negotiables, like those are things that are really solid. So, you know, one partner is non-negotiable, I need to have 5 children. The other partner is non-negotiable, I need to have 0 children. That's a tough one, right? That's a tough one to reconcile. Or I believe in, you know, physical aggression during arguments, and another partner who does not. You know, that would be a safety issue, a concern for well-being, you know, a deep concern for well-being. So, like, those are non-negotiables. That's a different situation than the ideal, right? It would be really nice if.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to like make that big distinction. A whole lot of marriages are great and don't have a whole lot of the like, oh well, it would be nice. They just kind of work it out.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah. So I mean, we mentioned this last week. 69% of problems are perpetual. So you can't use not disagreeing as a marker of success or failure of your relationship. That's a really big one.
Yeah, and also so this is, I think, like the trickiest one for me to like help my clients move past. Is if you're feeling unimportant, unloved, deprioritized, that doesn't mean your marriage is not working.
Right.
It just means your marriage is in negative sentiment override. And what that means is like your marriage is kind of stuck in a negative place. So everything feels negative. It's almost like there's this rain cloud on top of your marriage. It doesn't mean that your marriage is inherently not working. What it means is you need to move your marriage from negative sentiment override to positive sentiment override, where where you're looking at things globally more positively. But I think this is a hard one for people to reconcile because, you know, those feelings are so deep. And they're very powerful. So, but I think it is very liberating for people to hear that, like, even that's not a deal breaker. Even that doesn't mean your marriage is not working. It means your marriage needs, like, a really, really healthy dose of rituals of connection, which, of course, we've talked about 100 times. We did a whole episode on episode 2 with a great freebie with a master list of our favorite rituals of connection. So that's really what it means, is your marriage needs like a real nice heavy dose of those.
Yep. That's a big one. I feel like that's a really hard one for people to take in, but it's extremely important. I can't tell you how many couples I've had to explain this to, and just, you know, again, a lot of this is normal. It's just normal. It's like the ebb and flow of your relationship, and there's ways to come back from it. You know, what the other thing that doesn't mean your marriage isn't working is if you have different expectations for things, right? So if you and your partner have different expectations for chores or how you spend your leisure time or how you spend holidays, things like that, that doesn't mean your marriage is failing. It doesn't mean that you're not compatible. It means that you need to talk about it. You need to discuss and co-create shared expectations, which is something we'll talk more about, but that's, you know, just important to know.
Yeah, a big one that I see come up a lot is in-laws. And again, like, doesn't mean anything other than you need to strategically find a way to live with the situation and support each other better with the situation as opposed to try to change the situation.
Right.
It's like looking at changes internal versus external. You're never going to change the external situation, but you have a lot of power internally.
Yeah, that is a big one. So the shoulds. Let's talk about some shoulds.
Oh, the shoulds.
Those shoulds.
I heard someone at a conference once say something I really loved and found hilarious. Yeah, this therapist was talking, and he was saying, you know, he was doing a case presentation, and he was like, and then I told my client, you need to stop shooting all over yourself. A little therapy joke for you there. But, you know, I thought that was hilarious and, like, super pertinent.
Yeah, absolutely. I have banned the word should from sessions with some couples because I'm like, these shoulds are not, it's not getting us anywhere. Shoulds are nice. Talk about what you want. Talk about what you need. Make a request. Don't say it should, it should, it should. Because you know what? Shoulds are judgy.
Yeah.
Saying, like, well, you should do this or he should do that, that's, like, critical and judgy.
Yeah. And there are people who are definite should abusers. Like, there's just way too many shoulds, and it just, all it really communicates to me is, like, there's a lot of unmet expectations in your relationship.
Yeah.
And for me, like, that, generally the starting point for me with that is, are these expectations being expressed? Are these expectations being heard and validated? And usually, like, they're not. They're just kind of like, well, it should be this way. It goes back to, like, well, my partner should be a psychic. They should know everything I need. You know, it's like, I love 30 Rock. And Tracy Jordan has those two assistants. And in one episode, and I say this to George all the time, he's like, you should anticipate me. You know, like, it's just not realistic. Like, your partner can't anticipate you.
Right. That's funny. So, like, some of the shoulds, and by the way, these shoulds get in the way of your happiness. They actually prevent you from being happy in your relationship. So, he should just know what I want or need. He should never make me feel upset or hurt my feelings. That'd be nice.
This one is one I particularly, like, take a grievance with because I hear a lot of couples express this, like, he should never make me upset, or, like, I should never do that to upset my partner. Like, look at your partner as a resilient human being who's allowed to have a full spectrum of emotions. And upset has its place on a full spectrum of emotions. Like, what should not be is an emotional spectrum that only feels from happy to happy.
Yeah, that's not sustainable, you know, in a long-term relationship. And, you know, I would say there could be a should of my partner hopefully wouldn't intentionally and with malice upset me.
Of course.
Feelings, right? But it's natural for that to happen with two people coming together and building a life. He should express love to me in this way. And if he doesn't, then he doesn't love me.
This is a really, really common one.
Yep.
And this is a very, I think, frustrating one. Because, and I kind of blame a specific book. I'm not gonna
know what you're talking about.
Name it.
So let's talk about it, because I have mixed feelings. You talk about it.
So you know, the 5 love languages, and I love when people come into session with the printout of, like, this is my love language, and this is what my partner should be doing, and this is how they should be showing me love. And the reality is, from what I know, from what I've seen, from what I've experienced, like, it's so much more dynamic than that. And there's no, like, acts of service or blah blah, like, whatever. Like, if you just did that all the time, it would be so static.
Yeah.
Like, I think the ways we express love to our partners should be dynamic, should be a lot richer than, oh, well, this quiz said it's this, so let me just do this.
Yeah.
And also, like, where's the room for creativity? Where's the room for growth? Where's the room for emotional involvement in your relationship if you're, like, locked into, well, this is mine and this is yours and that's it. Like, there's no exploration and play and fun in that. So that's my grievance.
So, and I see that. I do see that. What I notice with the, like, how love is being expressed, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but we tend to express love the way we would like to receive it.
Yes.
So if I receive love, the message of love through physical affection, I'm going to show my partner love through physical affection. But if they receive the message of love through compliments, you know, and in verbal affirmations or just saying I love you, they may not internalize the physical affection as love. And they may feel a lack of receiving that message if I'm not verbalizing it. So I like the book as in a way of simplifying that concept and saying, like, look, generally speaking, what hits you hardest? Right? Like, so it kind of conceptualizes these categories of expressions of love. What is most impactful? And that's not to say don't do the others, but it's to say, hey, heads up, like, this is going to hit her the most like love, and this is going to hit, you know, the partner the most like love. So that's my 2 cents on it.
This is where we can agree to disagree. So I totally get that. And I think there is, like, so much value to that concept of what's the most impactful. Like, where do you get the most bang for your buck? And that's where I agree. Like, I think that's where the book really does make a super valid point.
Agree to disagree. Oh, I love this one too. He should feel happy and be relaxed when he comes home from work.
It's almost funny to me.
It is funny because I get wanting that to be the case. Like, it would be great if we all walked in the door and were like, "Hi, honey, how are you? How was your day? Mine was great. Yay!" But that's not usually, can't always be the case.
Yeah, I think this reminds me of that Sex and the City episode where Carrie was talking about being, like, perfect Carrie. You know, it's almost like the underlying expectation here is that your partner is always, like, their perfect, cheery, happy, best day self.
Yeah.
That's not realistic. Are you always your perfect, happy, cheery, best day self?
No way.
Probably not, right? So, I think it's important to check in with the fact that your partner is a human being just like you.
And the problem, ultimately, the problem with these shoulds is that they set your partner up for failure, right? Because no one can meet all these shoulds. And unfortunately, when you have these beliefs and you really feel that they're the truth, if your partner violates them, you end up feeling like he doesn't love me, he doesn't want me to be happy, he doesn't really care, and you can kind of go down this spiral and expand the feeling, like, over the whole relationship. And react to your partner as if that's the reality, right? React to your partner as if he or she doesn't love you, that you're not important to them, and then again, like, it starts these really negative dynamics.
Yeah, and it really, what it is at its core, it's you're putting contingencies on love. You're putting contingencies on connection, happiness, love. And when you put those contingencies on there, like, it doesn't feel good.
No.
So, that's a great segue into how do we appreciate what we have right now? How do we let go of those contingencies and those shoulds?
That's a good question. You know, I know it sounds simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. That's something I find myself saying a lot these days. Rather than focusing on what you don't have or what the problems are, focus on what's going right. Right? Like, how do you help couples do this, shift to focusing on what's going right?
So I really love like the gratitude journaling and the sharing the gratitude journaling with each other. I think, gratitude journaling, when you do it on a daily basis, you're really making a habit of looking for things that are good and you appreciate and make you feel good, make you feel grateful. And there's a lot to that. And I think it really brings you into the moment. And it's almost like, some people are stuck in, when you're in that should mentality, you're scanning for when your shoulds aren't met. When you're in a gratitude mentality, even if, like some people, when I start them out with this, like it's so hard for them to find 3. But if you make a practice of it, like what you're actually making a practice of is scanning for the good things that are happening in the present, as opposed to like the shoulds that aren't being met.
Yeah. And, I always try to explain that it's not, this exercise is so powerful because it's not just about making the list, right? The action of using your brain to look back at your day and go through your day and seek out what went well, that physiologically trains your brain to do that more and more. And over time, that becomes the natural tendency. Like, that's why it's so powerful. Like, yes, it's nice to, like, make a list of 3 good things, but it's about retraining your brain to focus attention on a certain place. It actually makes you happier over time.
It's like putting your brain into positive sentiment override.
Yeah. I love that one.
Yeah, I think, and it's, again, like, what really grinds my gears is when people undermine this one. It's an easy one, and it's an easy one to, like, also just say, like, meh, whatever, it's too easy. But, like, this is the beautiful thing about it. It's simply great. It's truly, like, a simply great tip is the gratitude journaling, in terms of letting go of the shoulds and being a lot more present and grateful for what you have.
Yeah, definitely. I know this next one is Marina's favorite, so I'm going to let her share it, about giving process-based compliments to your partner.
So process-based compliments, I feel like they're about the same thing. They're like about being present and aware of your partner in the moment and complimenting, like, there's a big difference between like, oh, you look really nice, versus like, today when you made me breakfast in the morning, it made me feel so considered, and like it just made me feel like you so got that I was going to have this stressful day, and you did something that was so nice and so loving and so impactful for me, and it made me feel so great about you and our relationship. Like, that's a process-based compliment. That's what actually, George made me breakfast this morning. And I was rushing this morning because the traffic was atrocious. And that's, like, exactly how I felt, and that's what I told him, and that has, like, a lot more than, like, oh, you made breakfast. That was good.
Thanks.
Thanks.
That's really nice.
Yeah, so, I love the compliments that come with the depth.
Yeah. And I think, another way to appreciate what you have now is to focus on the small stuff, right? It doesn't have to be these grandiose things, and really that's another thing that gets in the way, are these unrealistic expectations that, well, we have to have this house for me to be happy, or we have to go on this vacation for me to be happy. Like, no. You need to work on focusing on the smaller moments that make you happy. Like what you just said, your partner making you breakfast and thinking of you in that way is a big deal. That's a very nice thing. Your partner making you a cup of coffee, asking if you want anything from wherever, we're used to learn a lot about food, huh? Bringing you home a cupcake, I was going to say. Anything like that is really, like, those small things matter. So rather than focusing on the big stuff, which is harder to do on a consistent basis, focus your energy on picking out the smaller things that are powerful and positive.
And to go with that, it's also focusing on the feeling, right? Like, at the end of the day, we're all chasing feelings. Like, we want the big house because we perceive we'll feel some type of way when we have it. We want the vacation or the purse or whatever because we perceive we will feel a certain way when we have it. When really a lot of those feelings that we're chasing, we already get. We just don't pay enough attention and gratitude to them.
Yeah.
So, like, if at the end of the day you want to feel calm, or you want to feel connected, or you want to feel successful, or you want to feel a sense of desire, like, focus on the little things that give you that feeling. And share that with your partner. Like, a feeling I really like is, feeling like my partner is emotionally attuned to me. That happened for me this morning, and I expressed that in a process-based compliment. I could have also just expressed it without a process-based compliment and said, like, I really appreciate that you did this for me because it really makes me feel considered. And the house is not gonna get me that feeling like this, but something really small will.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we create new realistic expectations for your relationship? So if you're listening to this and you're saying, oh boy, that's me, I think that, I thought that, I believed that, we fight about that, we're going to tell you how to create a new set of expectations. So you're setting yourselves up for success. The first step here is to get clear on what needs are yours to meet for yourself. So if you were to make a big old list of all your needs, almost sorting through, like, what's in my bucket of responsibility and what's actually in my partner's. And you're going to find that 90% are really your responsibility to meet for yourself. So being aware of that is really important before taking it to a couple's discussion and, putting your joint needs together on the table.
Yeah, and I would say, like, I'll give you guys, like, a bit of a hack, a bit of a cheat. Like, there are only very few feelings that, like, are met interpersonally. And these are, like, emotional attunement, connection, like, feelings that are centered around co-creating something between the two of you. A lot of the rest of the feelings, like happy, we talked about this in another episode, like, is not necessarily your partner's job.
Yeah.
Emotionally attuned is both of your jobs together, but happy, not necessarily their job.
Yep. It's a new concept, I know, for a lot of people, but it's a really important piece of this. Also, to understand that your partner is not your parent, right? Your partner is not, in the sense that it's not your partner's job to do things for you or, take care of you necessarily in that way, but also in the sense that they're not going to do things exactly as your parent did.
Yeah. Right. And I think that's so like important to decipher. Because it makes sense. We got our relationship blueprint from our parents, well, at least the very large majority of us. But you're not marrying your parent. We're not living in Freud world here.
No. No, we're not.
And another one, and I guess this is kind of the step 3, is talk with your partner to co-create. Co-create means bring some of yours, they bring some of theirs. Expectations for different areas of your life. And I think, like, the more thorough you can be with this, the better. Like, when people are like, oh, we just want to be happy and we want to our kids to be happy and we want to pay off the mortgage. Like, no, this is where you get detailed. This is where you do your due diligence and you co-create in the areas that are really important to you in as much detail and with as much diligence and love and effort as possible.
Yeah.
And to do this, download this week's bonus because we have a really great worksheet for you. And I think this worksheet pairs super well with the bonus from episode 6, the compromise cheat sheet.
Yeah.
If you find yourself stuck on some topics or, this is not necessarily always a smooth ride. So I think this one with the bonus from 6 can really, really help you co-create that vision together where you feel like you're winning, you're getting to yes, you're meeting in the middle, and you're creating this vision that's truly yours and unique to your relationship. So we don't just want you to listen. We want you to listen and to integrate this into your relationship. So we've put together the co-creation of realistic expectations worksheet for you, and you can download it at our website at simplygreatrelationships.com/013.
Yep, that's a good one. Definitely grab that. Let's talk about our takeaways. What's your takeaway?
I guess my big takeaway is, you know what, I'm going to say this, it's going to be so against my dogma, but
oh boy.
What you said, like, about 5 principles, not 5 principles, 5 love languages, sorry, that it's, like, about what hits the hardest, it's what has the most impact, because I've been so anti for so long. So I think that, like, really kind of frames it for me, that not just looking at it as something that's, like, static, but, like, it's about getting the most value out of your effort.
That's a pretty good takeaway. My takeaway today, I think really about how ingrained these beliefs are. Like how, and this is probably another discussion for another day, but, you know, romantic comedies, I call them lady porn, right? So with the women, they watch the romantic comedies and they see these grand gestures and these, like, what's that movie? Oh, it's going to drive me nuts. Oh, it's with Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis.
Oh, yeah.
Friends with Benefits, I want to say. Oh my gosh, that movie captures this so beautifully. That she's waiting for, she's waiting for this grand gesture, so he puts together a flash mob to show her that he loves her after all this drama. And I'm just like, you are ruining relationships everywhere because that is not going to happen. And that doesn't mean your relationship is bad. So I think we're fed these sort of, like, idealistic beliefs, like the myths we talked about. We're fed these from, our parents, from peers, from TV, from movies, from the media, and we take them in as reality, but they're not. So
we take them in as shoulds.
Shoulds, and that they're attainable and possible, and they're just not. So I think just remembering again, like, how ingrained these are in our minds and in our culture, and that it's really hard to battle back on.
Yeah, and that they can be really sabotaging to, like, really great IRL relationships.
In real life. Just in case you don't know. So, I mean, that's all for today. We hope that you take these tips and start using them right away. Be sure to download the bonus because that's going to be really helpful. And we'd love for you to continue the conversation with us in our Facebook group, where we're going to be giving you tips, tricks, and going in there with live streams exclusively for our members. We'd also love to hear from you of how you're managing this in your relationship, and if you saw in yourself some unrealistic expectations and you want to put them out there for the group, I think that'd be very brave. And I'm sure you'd have a lot of people saying, yep, me too.
Yes.
So definitely join us there. You can get to it at facebook.com/groups/simplygreatrelationships, or you can go to our website and just click the link, and that's simplygreatrelationships.com. So until next week, bye.
Bye.